Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Andy, and I really want Tim's job, but that's for later. So I'm sure everybody's done this, but hi, anybody around the pillar. So thanks very much for coming. We're going to talk about how to leverage a coalition program from the point of view of a member of that coalition. And I'm really delighted that Tim could make it here today, all the way from Halifax, to take you through the case study. And I'm really here just to set that up. I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about the coalition model in general and what it should deliver, and then Tim will pick up and talk about a specific case study. Okay. So when you think about it, the challenge that lays before a coalition program is to really drive consumer engagement through recognizing and rewarding those consumers to a point that really drives business growth. And if you then take a step back and look at the challenge from the consumer's point of view, a consumer, when really considering a program that they might be interested in being part of, really wants to find a program that fits as much of their spend habits as they possibly can. Find a program that actually rewards them in an appropriate and excellent manner, and at the same time never gets to a point where they're bored with it. If you look at a loyalty program, a coalition program, from the point of view of the brand that's a part of it, obviously they're looking to leverage the rewarding behavior to actually capture and leverage consumer data so that they can optimize and drive their business, optimize merchandising, optimize marketing, and really look after their investments, and at the same time improve the consumer experience to drive that engagement. So the challenge for any coalition is to do both sides of that coin. If we go a bit further into the consumer side, the great thing about a really well-run coalition is that it allows a consumer to earn for all of their everyday shopping habits across a whole wide range of sectors. So if you take air miles, for example, we cover around about 2/3 of all shopping categories across Canada. It also allows them to earn across all sales channels, be they online or offline, and it allows them to earn regardless of any kind of payment method they may take to use, although, of course, it will probably have a payment mechanism within itself that actually supercharges the ability to earn rewards. And the natural follow-through from that setup is that a great coalition will always allow a consumer to earn rewards at a much greater rate than any single individual brand loyalty program could possibly do, because they're earning across a whole range of categories. The other thing that a great coalition needs to do is to engage through all ranges of communication channels that a member wishes to hear from. You know, it's really interesting just to talk about air miles for a second in that regard, because I think we've just gone through the barrier of around about 1 million mobile app downloads in Canada alone. So clearly the demand for being communicated with through a whole range of channels is there, and you can see that borne out by our example. And all of that ability to actually access a whole range of sectors, to shop across them, across all channels, all predicated on one identification, a card, something that allows you to be identified. You don't have to carry a whole bunch of identifications with you for all of the programs that you might be part of. So a good coalition should be able to deliver all of that for the consumer. Now, on the brand side of things, the fundamental benefits that a good coalition should bring, well, the first and most obvious one, certainly for an existing coalition, is the ability to bring value to a coalition member very quickly. The setup, because you have an existing program, is going to be much faster than if you did it yourself. As an example, it took about 4 months, Tim, to set up. From saying yes to getting in market was 4 months to put Nova Scotia into the market, which is something you could never imagine achieving if you were doing this yourself. And of course, once you're there, because of the shared costs within the coalition, your costs are going to be in a much better place than if you were doing it all of yourself. Okay? Now, one of the reasons why we can get to market and really drive value very quickly is because there's, with any existing coalition, there's a large existing base. So within Canada, for example, Air Miles has something like 10 million active accounts, representing about 2/3 of Canadian population. And so obviously driving those, or engaging those people and driving them into the new shopping category, into the new sponsor, is something that allows you to get there very quickly. So another benefit of a great coalition is a base that is actually active, willing to shop, and ready to do that. And then the last thing is that if you bring together all of the data, all of the transaction data at the coalition member, and also all of the customer data that is carried within the coalition, that's probably the biggest and best unique data set that you can use to optimize all of your marketing, all of your merchandising, all of your pricing, all of your promotional efforts. So if the coalition is done right, it's going to meet the challenge for both the consumer and the brand, get you there quicker and in a much better way. So with that, I really wanted to hand over to Tim to talk through a case study. Tim and his team have been on board for almost exactly 1 year. I think they started in February 2012. So I think a year is a pretty good time to take note and see how things have gone. And Tim will come up and give you his candid view of how we've done.
Thank you, Andy. So I might have a cooler job, but I don't have as cool an accent, so I'll apologize now. I still get made fun of saying bagel versus bagel. And coach versus coach. You know, that's like the maritimer in me that comes out. But you didn't get past the awkward after lunch, little icebreaker game that we'll do together here. Someone did it to me a couple weeks ago, and I need you'll understand how to link in, hopefully, to the presentation. But I just need you to, and so I'll explain it, and then you'll have to, I hope everyone will participate with me. So for about 2 seconds, I just need you to close your eyes and picture yourself writing or printing, whatever you prefer, the letter B in the front of your face, okay? So, ready? We'll get everyone to do it. So close your eyes. Okay, so here's the test. So how many people, everyone done? You can open your eyes. How many people wrote the letter as if it was facing you? Hands up, really high. Wow. And then how many people did it as if you were projecting it out to the audience or the group? So it looks like about actually 50-50. So it's funny, and I don't know where this came from, and it was a psychological thing. I actually heard it on a podcast and whatever. But anyways, I guess if you look at the average population, about 80% of the folks will do it as if it's projecting out. And those who do it projecting in are the minority and tend to be very kind of introspective in their thinking, but also a lot more selfish than those who do it out. So what I'll do is I'll say all of us, and I'll put that up, and I see some high fives. So I need some high fives, because I was with a couple of friends, and I was the only guy who did it facing me. So we'll go for a drink later and we'll laugh about it. So, but really the purpose of that was, at least for a few seconds today, I hope I just made you think a little differently, and you thought about that, and now you're thinking about, does that mean something about me, or et cetera. But really what it's about is for my organization, and for someone who had a packaged good background coming in, and I'm excited to be sort of one of the first retailers that's not at least in the food space to be speaking with you today, was really changing the thinking and looking to think differently. That, if I may, I do a small swear word, what the heck does a pure monopoly need a loyalty program for? And it was probably one of the toughest conversations, both positioning-wise, reputational-wise, that we had to struggle with. Just a quick show of hands. How many people are from Canada in the audience? So most are from Canada. How many people are Ontario-based? Okay, so the majority. So I'll give you some analogies. So we're the equivalent of the LCBO plus the beer store in one-stop shop. So if you look at my LCBO counterparts, there's an element of shift or share that can be involved in obviously a really effectively and well-executed loyalty program. In our environment, we actually threw out the word loyalty and really talk about rewards. And rewards is basically a coin term we use internally to just say it's a currency for insight. So we needed to find the right partner to find a currency to get those insights and then to leverage. So that's what I'll talk a little bit about today over the next few minutes. And I think you'll see a lot of the themes that came through this morning come through in some of the stuff we've just started together. And I hope we have a few minutes for some questions from a little bit of a different perspective. So really talking about, why did we do this? What were our motivating factors? We're in a tough go right now in our province. Some of you who might be from, or maybe there's some folks out there, I keep doing the hands up thing to keep you awake, but that are from Nova Scotia or have some connections there. Definitely some positive momentum, at least spirit-wise right now. Part of the pun with the ships are here and a bunch of the changes coming. But we have some very difficult demographics against us. We're this irony of the oldest population in Canada of any province, but the third youngest city in Halifax for the majority of the population. So, if you think about that, the need for understanding that customer behavior even more so, trading stores properly, leveraging that, etc., for a strength, not a weakness, is something that's really important to us over the next little while. So a huge motivator that, believe it or not, we don't want to sell more. And that might sound a little contrary. Well, you want to sell more. We're not trying to. I could sell more overnight. I could make beer half price. I could sell a bunch of $8 wine. The challenge for my team every day is selling better. So we're trying to get people to, and it's ironic, people don't jump in $5 increments in wine. They don't go from a $15 wine to a $20 wine to $25. They go from 15 to 16 to 17, and you move them them up the ladder. But we need to better understand those folks even more than we ever had to help them and give them reason to believe in that value exchange. And, this concept of anticipating their needs, we're a monopoly. We get that perception sometimes of being big brother. So we have to watch that. We have a group of, we'll call it our media friends who, no matter what they write about us, they're going to get airtime. People love to hate us or love to love us. Luckily, the majority love us. We get great satisfaction. Sort of brand health is very strong. But any time, it's a very polarizing group to talk about because, as we know, we all either love or hate or are part of that conversation about beverage alcohol because it is a fun business to talk about. And then talking about the program itself, we really didn't need another promotional tool. We price discount, we display products, we do value-added products, etc. But we wanted something, again, that just gave us that currency, that a value exchange that the consumer could feel that at the end of the day we were going to leverage to drive insight. And, by no means 1 year in am I going to profess that we've got this thing figured out, but I think we're well on our way together. Generating those more personal relationships and getting back to Big Brother, how do we get to that point where we know people just when they know what they want or just a little bit before without them maybe feeling that way, because beverage alcohol does have a lot of innate kind of sensitivities to it as a product. It does not necessarily just stack them high, let them fly type category. And I think one I'd leave with on this slide is not to underestimate the power and the importance of the supplier relationships. I have 3 vendors, for instance, that make up 60% of my top line sales. So 60% of my $600 million. We have about 105 stores. Do about $225 million on the bottom line. But really, these guys have global capabilities. They are retail link partners with Walmart in the U.S. They have them there, but it's very young in Canada. They're about 10, 15 years behind the packaged good industry of really understanding what customer market is, analytics, how do you put a one customer voice and truth together. And we're going to try to be a progressive board that helps bring those folks along. Because really, if they believe in the program, support the program, or the people who are buying, in this case, the miles, that streamline of value that comes with the insights and how your action really comes out at the end. Why air miles? It was we did look at other partners, and all had their benefits. And the one that had really the major drawback, and I'll hint a little bit and build on something Andy said, was we needed, with the demographics, the things that I mentioned earlier, the macroeconomic factors, we needed to move quickly. We had this commitment in our 5-year strat plan that those who were visited Nova Scotia 20 years ago, we were a place to buy. So but when I grew up, and I'm not that old, there was still desks that you had to go up to almost submit your order and get that alcohol back. And if those folks remember that from the LCBO, kind of command and control days. So we wanted to go from a place to buy, so a very functional experience, to at least to a place to shop. So, shop implies I'm going to shop around, I'm going to move around, I'm going to interact, to a personalized experience, which is the commitment we've made in our current strat plan. And this is the type of tool we needed to take 17 million plus transactions we do a year and really move that along the continuum of not just simply we see people have bought here, bought there, no idea who that person was or what we've done to induce a change in behavior. And also had the advantage in our market to have a very strong partner. I know there's a few folks from Sobeys in the room today who really have helped, and with the support of Air Miles, build that 87% household penetration right from the beginning. And all that time, money, and resources that we would have spent potentially going on our own, we now get to have more immediate returns and move forward with that. And as we know, in today's world, is a more or less with less faster type environment. Really, most folks, given the amount of people here that are from Canada, know how the program works. There's a base mile component and a bonus mile component. Really, what we are working with Air Miles as a partner today, and we're still working through it and figuring it out because we're the first monopoly in Canada to do this. The first folks who are 100% of the beer marketplace and doing this is trying to understand what that daily value exchange is. As we all know, the value of that swipe is so important, and we're trying to figure out what that right balance is making sure that they feel like it's worth it every day. If they do the pure equation on what a mile is and what they get for that, it's not that much necessarily value on an everyday swipe. What our opportunity is, how do we evolve that into personalized, specialized offers and give that value exchange through that mechanism. And we're in that first step now. The example I give here is and Andrew touched on it a bit in the verbiage on the copy of the video is we have folks who go to our Port of Wines Festival. It's basically our biggest wine festival of the year, 5,000 people over a couple of days going through, buying $400,000 worth of wine. I want to be able to take that person. I want to understand when they've gone to that event for the first time. I want to know what they bought. I want to then help them move along the continuum within that country or across the countries they're engaged in. I want to let them know that there's a special offer coming to them. I want them to know that we're doing a tasting event 6 months down the road with a winemaker that's flying in town. And I want to close that cycle and give them a special invitation to a pre-event to next year's Port of Wine Festival. And that's just again, a lot of these examples and examples used in there are fairly basic when you look at them, but they're actually quite advanced for the beverage alcohol industry, in particular in controlled, the equivalent of a controlled state or a controlled province. And really, for us, we have about 1,500 employees on our retail network. I joke they can sell anything and they can hurt anything they want to, too. They're an amazing group of people that when feeling like they're part of the process and they feel some sense of ownership, what they can accomplish is absolutely unbelievable, and I use examples of a wine that no one knew about, that we did a tasting, it over-delivered versus the price point. We're buying container loads the next week based on their support. So, we looked at just some examples here that employee interaction was critical. We did things like a subscription campaign, so we made sure, hey, we want all our employees living this proposition. So does everyone have a card of this 1,500 plus people? We did some online scavenger hunts so they can understand what exactly Air Miles is. The perception of it's just a travel program. Well, we blew that up overnight when we get them engaged, and just little things that our stores are very competitive, putting them up against each other, putting them each other for some contesting, etc. And then trying to do these. Sometimes organizations go so far to the left and try to do it in their retail network, they forget about their head office folks. So we try to strike that balance and say, how do we get the folks who actually are putting the offers in every day or making the case show up on time and those sort of things. So doing some head office thing, and I think one of the most meaningful, even though it was one of the least expensive, I guess I would call it, is just simply an executive team of 8 people visiting every one of those 105 stores within a 2 retail day period. And the amount of how difficult it is to get my peers out to our retail network, you'd be shocked. But it was a great moment to show our total organizational support. I'll fly through the next couple just to try to stay on time. Obviously, a year in, we're still learning, and one of our biggest next opportunities is this: take the power of what you've seen this morning, where we're at here in the evolution of the life cycle of our partnership with Air Miles, and take it to the next level of personalization, investment, and commitment to supporting the initiative through to our customer. We've done some stuff. We had some very good early results on some personalized activities, and really it's just scratching the surface of where we're going to go together. And I'll just use a few examples. I think it's great when you see these come to life, and you'll be shocked that in an industry that's as old as beverage alcohol, just how we've shared information, or we've partnered with some of our key multinational global Fortune 500 type companies just to give them stuff that they actually never knew. They were probably doing qualitative testing, post and doing concept testing, all these different things, ways to get there. But it's a tool that if you open up that vault a little bit, that again, I use that Walmart retailing partnership type for those who are familiar with it, the power of it. So this major national beer launch, and I don't think they'd mind, I just didn't want to put it on a slide, was Coors Light Iced Tea. It was a product many of you may have seen in the market, huge media campaign, and really simple questions that we couldn't answer for them before on who's buying it, what was their share of stomach on different products before, what induced them or appeared to induce them to drink that product for the first time, how loyal did they become, where did they come from, where did they go, did they stick around with you? And as that example, it was a launch that didn't necessarily meet their expectations, and we learned very simple. 75% of the consumer base that tried that product was coming from their core franchise, which is good and bad because it was a premium product, so you premiumize your portfolio. But in my world, I do $300 million worth of beer. If you don't make it to a half point of share and you're just kind of eating your own lunch, that's going to be tough to sustain. So then we worked with that vendor to try to understand that better and course correct along the way. And wine, wine is the most complex yet the most fascinating and fun category I've ever participated in. And it's one of those ones that's so polarizing. You're trying to keep the guy or gal coming into the category happy and just get them to drink wine for the first time, and then you're trying to keep the snooty, nose-up sommeliers of the world happy too. So I am one of those, so I have to be careful sometimes. But in this example, it was an Argentinian portfolio that we launched, 5 varietals, so 5 different types of wine. And we were trying to understand, a very simple question you would think, what's the value of investing to drive trial? And I'll just make you think about that a little differently to say, well, it might feel aggressive that, within the first allowable period to promote that we went super discounted, I'm bastardizing my brand proposition, etc. Well, Air Miles 1, we get away from price. Price is the laziest lever a retailer can use. And it's a race to the bottom, and you can't win. And I've learned that. I learned that the hard way when I managed Huggies diapers all the way to managing Captain Morgan. But in this case, we really tried to understand, the difference between each varietal to say, how did I get someone trying the cab? What did they do after? Did they stick with you? Holy crap, there's this wine called a Tarantes that probably a tenth of the room has tried. And we had a really great opportunity, and we were able to get people to try them for the first time. But we knew the repeat wasn't there, because it's a pretty polarizing grape, but we were ahead of a lot of the norms that we'd ever be, and they were able to understand that better and course correct. So just some really basic examples that in an industry that's a little farther behind on the analytics and the power of it that we would be proud of, and we have many other examples. So we're on the home stretch here. It's working. It's working that 87% penetration who shop our stores on average a couple times a month, they're using their card. By category is actually quite different. If you just think of your own behavior, we're challenged to get the guy who comes in and knows exactly, that goes to his milk, right? In our market, Keith's beer is milk. So they go to the back corner, they don't know the value, or they don't want their wife to see the swipe of the card, etc. So part of that is an education about the value exchange on the product. But then on a category like wine, it's so fragmented, it's so complex. Consumers walk in and just go, give me any reason to buy that product and understand it and engage with it better. So very, very effective to date on wine and also spirits, and still a little bit to figure out on beer. But again, the commitment from our vendor community with the promise that there's going to be an insight and value exchange with them at the end of the day is something that we've been able to move people along on. So I think this is my last slide, and then we might ask a question or two. So just my takeaways being almost our 1-year anniversary, so kind of happy birthday to us as we present this. Really trying to find the program that's the best fit. And, we talked about speed and pace of integration, etc. I joked with the team yesterday that it was the intensity, support, and focus of when we executed SAP with all the pain and suffering that it gave us when we implemented SAP. And I hope if there's anyone from SAP in the room, it is the gift that keeps on giving, and giving my money to them to do anything to do it. So it is sorry guys if you're out there. Second is vet and align strategy across the enterprise. You talked about making sure that I would probably give you $10 or maybe 10 Air Miles donated from the Air Miles folks if you can go into our stores and not get asked for your Air Miles card. We put it as an operational standard. You've got to press a button through the till to be able to do it, but it's becoming part of our culture. It's a part and an extension of who we are, which is fantastic, and involving obviously the frontline employees all the way to the office and those who are really working the programs every day. Multi-channel communication, again, we're just scratching the surface of that. Our ability to mine this data, target offers. Like, who doesn't want to receive something about wine if you like wine? I mean, I'm a bit slanted to it, but people are starving for education and awareness and anything about wine, and to give them some value and an offer and make them feel special. We coined a phrase in the group is surprise and delight, but don't try to perfect. And that's what I've challenged my team every day on, is find that little moment that you surprise them, that little moment that you delight in them. But we were an organization when I came in just 3 years ago, and we still struggle at times, is we try to perfect everything. So what's that magic 75, 80% that you go, all right, we're going. We're going to see, and we're going to see how this plays out, and we're going to test, learn, and improve it, which we'll talk a sec about. Collaborating with suppliers. We couldn't do it with our suppliers. They're the ones that makes this model, cost-effective for us, profitable for us, and because of their commitment, and I would say because my team's ability to engage them has made this a break-even proposition a lot quicker than we anticipated it will become. And then test, measure, and learn. We use a kind of term of start, stop, and continue. What would you start doing? What would you stop doing? And what would you continue doing? If we keep asking those questions of each other, we feel like we're going to keep moving this forward. So I think that is the end of me.